Greetings hobbyists, this is our Sans of Vol, and today we're going to have a look at a number of ways of conforming text to objects that are curved or rounded. So this request came from a few people after the video on how to engrave or emboss text on objects, with people wanting to know how to put them onto something like a sphere, mostly for things like shoulder pads or for the edge of bases. And it's important to recognise that there are a couple of ways of doing this. So let's go straight in and have a look at two of the best methods depending on what you want to achieve. So here we can see that we've got a column. This is going to be for a base that I'm making. And around the bottom, I want to have some text engraved into the base. And I've just got an example of some text here. If you haven't watched the video on how to make text of various different types and how to make it so that it will be easy to manipulate, please do watch the video that I've done previously. The link is in the description on how to make Gothic text. So at this point, I've done everything that's in that video. I've got the text, changed the font, and I've reduced the vertex count so it's not going to cause as many problems. And what I want to do straight away is solidify it. So add modifier, and then we're going to solidify. And I want that to be about 1mm, and straight away you can see the error that we always get when we manipulate text in that the scale isn't correct. So I'm going to press Ctrl and A and scale so that now that is 1mm in thickness, which generally for text looks pretty good when you're going to try to either engrave or emboss it. But we need to get this onto this object. So this is actually relatively simple to do. I'm just going to minimize that modifier because we're once again going to use a modifier. So all we do is click add modifier, and we want what's called a Shrinkwrap modifier. Now at the moment it's not doing anything. We have to select a target. So I'm going to target this cylinder, and you can see straight away that it has conformed it to this. Now there are various methods of this. Now at the moment it's got nearest surface. Project can sometimes be good, though here it seems to be causing an absolute mess, so we won't do that. The other one that is target normal project normally looks quite good, and here let's have a look. That one, or nearest surface. Now I actually, in terms of height, think that this one looks the best, and a good way of checking this is if you go back to your perfect front view, what you can do is toggle this on and off so you can see what it did look like. So you can see here it's conforming to the object, okay, but it's shrinking it in terms of its width. And if I go back to the other one, target, it's shrinking it in terms of both, but it looks a little bit more equal. So I'm going to stick with nearest surface, okay, and we've got a few problems here that are going to straight away cause an issue. So the first issue is that at the moment this text is trying to conform perfectly to the object, and that's going to cause some problems because once we start trying to subtract things, it's not going to like it. So what we can use is the offset option in the modifier panel, and if I just make that so it sticks out a little bit, okay, and I normally check to see if there's any issues here. For example, if I go one back, you can see that it's still causing a few issues, for example, just there. So I want it a little bit further out than that. So I'm going to go somewhere around here, and that means it's much less likely to cause problems or issues. Now, if I was doing this so that I wanted this to be embossed, so it was sticking out, I'd do this the opposite way round. I would actually change the offset to be +1 for the solidify modifier, so now it's sticking out, and then for the offset, I'd want it to be slightly inside. So you've got two options there, but either way, you want to make sure that there is some overlap. So let's go back to what I want, which is engraving. And once we've done that, that is all there is to it, okay? Unless there's some errors with this text, this should do it perfectly. So let's get this working. We're going to apply all of those, and it's always worth checking everything before we try to apply things. So I'm going to go into isolated view with /, okay? Have a look to see if there's any errors, okay, and then let's do 3D print and check all, and there are some minor errors. Let's see if we can fix those. Vertex, let's go to where the face issues are. Actually, that probably shouldn't be too much of a problem. Let's have a quick look at that. There is going to be a slight issue here, probably just because those are too close together, so let's merge those together at the last, and then do the same the other side. Merge together at last. Okay, and that, while it's not perfect, probably should have solved that issue. at least in a way that it's not going to mess up. So let's get this sorted. We want that object, so I've selected the thing that I want the material taken away from. Add modifier, boolean, we want a difference, which it already is, and then we want it to be on exact, is generally best. Click the dropper icon, click the text. At the moment we can't see anything because we can still see the text is there, so let's hide that text, and we've got that embossed example. Really, really nice and easy, and you can see it conforms to this object quite nicely. So that is how we're going to add things to things like shoulder pads. So pretty simple, we just apply that and we've got that done. Now that's great in most situations, but it can cause problems. So let's have a look at one of those examples where this could cause problems. So over here, I've got my exact same column, but I've got a longer bit of text, something that I want to go entirely around the column at the bottom. And we'll notice if we do exactly what we did before, so add modifier, and we're going to add a shrink wrap, and then I'm going to select that, and you'll notice straight away it gets really bunched up and causes loads of problems. Now actually, if I just go back to this, we will notice that I actually haven't applied the scale, so let's just do that now. Control A and scale, just so we can see that that's not the problem. And as you can see, it still is causing the problem. And even if I change this to the other ones, okay, it has a lot of issues. Shrink wrap doesn't work when you want something to go around the entirety of a cylinder. So we're not going to be able to use that. We need to do something else. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to manipulate this to go around the outside of another object that just looks like this part of the cylinder. Now, if I just isolate this, you'll notice that I've actually kept this separate from the main bulk of the cylinder. That's just to make things a little bit easier. And if I just go into this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge mode, and I'm going to make an edge right in the middle, and then I'm going to take this from this location. So I'm going to press Shift and D to duplicate it, P, and then I'm going to, by selection, separate it. If I go back into object mode, now I've got this as a separate object, okay? And if I come back out of that, importantly, what I can now do is convert this to a curve. Now you could have done this by making a circle or a curve by itself. If I went to Shift A and then go to curve and choose circle, you can do it in exactly the same way. There's no problem with that, okay? And that will work just fine. But this way, I have that circle that's exactly the diameter of what I'm trying to copy it to. So coming in here, we've got everything scaled correctly. We'll do the add modifier and solidify, though we can do that later, that's fine. And we want it 1 millimeter. Okay, so we've got that there. Now, let's make that a little bit smaller, and we're going to add another modifier, but not a shrink wrap this time. We're going to add a curve modifier. Now what this is used to do is to, unsurprisingly, curve something around a predefined object. So if I select, and I'm just going to do this here because there's only one, this curve, you'll notice that straight away it looks like it's gone horribly wrong. This is to do with the placement of the object. So if I just undo that, you'll notice that this object is quite far away. The origin is here and it's quite far away from this curve. So if I do that again, okay, what I can do is quite easily modify that, okay, and that's what's really useful about this. So if I just hide that, and I've only got this here, go into the view above and see where this is. If I just press G, and you'll notice I'm doing this directly from above, so I'm not moving it on the Z axis. If I press G and move it around, as I move further or closer to the origin of the curve, okay, you'll see that what I'm doing is I'm moving where this is, and I can rotate it around or whatever I want to do. But importantly, I can go to somewhere like here. So if I come out of X-ray mode, you can see we're just sticking everything outside. Now, this does have the odd thing that it does seem to, and I think this is the way I just created the object, put this in reverse. So we are going to need to fix that, but that's relatively easy to fix. All we're going to do is press S, and we're going to scale it on the X-axis by -1. And I've just typed in -1, so it's exactly -1, and you can see it's now around the correct way. Okay, that is the most common error. So once again, I'm just going to undo that. Okay, the text is backwards, so S to scale it, I want it to be scaled on the x-axis at -1. Now, if you've done yours in a different direction, it might be that you need to scale it on the y-axis by -1, but either way, that's how you can solve that pretty common issue. Now, I can scale this, okay, and you'll notice the scaling here, okay, is not, if I come to above, the scaling is not affecting how far away it is from the object. So you'll notice that I can actually make my text perfectly line up where it's sort of coming to a join there, okay, nice and easily. Okay, so you can do this. For example, I could, if I wanted to, scale it so that this only covered, let's say, half of the cylinder, okay, and then I could do the same text again on the other half or do something else. So whatever you write, you can make sure that it will fit round your cylinder. And I'm going to make a little bit more of a gap there, and I'm going to put like a dot there in the center, so a cylinder, just to make sure that that's clear. That's where you start reading the text. So we've got that there, and in exactly the same way now, I'm going to click Apply All just to make sure it's there. I'm going to check the 3D print, see if there's any issues. Let's click Make Manifold, see if that fixes any of them, and let's go into isolation mode to check those intersecting faces. I'm not sure those are actually going to cause any problems there, so that should be fine, and that will be on all of the T's. So let's see if we can do that without it. So select the object, add modifier. I want to have a Boolean, and I'm going to difference the text, and then I need to hide that text. And we've got my text nicely booleaned to this object. Okay, and if I want to, for example, that bottom of the P is quite low down, so I can always just go back in, unhide that text, and G and Z to just move it up a little bit. Let's go with something like that. Hide it again, and we've got my text. I'm just going to hide that line. So this, if you want to have something going around the entirety of a circle, is how you want to modify it. Okay, it makes it much, much easier. Or, I mean, you could do it this way, but you're going to have to do it probably each word by each word. I think this is much more reliable. And to be honest, if I'm doing this over a perfect cylinder, I will actually use this version over the Shrinkwrap version, just because it's a little bit easier and it doesn't modify the size of the text as much. So hopefully you found that useful, and I look forward to seeing some examples of how people have done that for various different objects. Bearing in mind, you don't need to just do it for text, you could do it for other things. For example, if you've created some sort of icon that you want to have put on a curved surface or a round surface, this is a great way to do it. As always, if you found this useful, I'd really appreciate you liking the video. It helps me out, letting me know what people want to see more of, and if there's anything else you'd like to see, do always feel free to comment in the comment section.